The Fourth Circuit of Appeals has denied a rehearing for the injunction from 2311 Racing Front Row Motorsports, what that means for them going forward. NASCAR's returning to Bowman Gray Stadium in 2026. Plus, Dale Jr., he's heard your complaints about TNT. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Busy news day. Before we get to that, we have a new podcast out called Closing Laps. Myself and my friend Cam, former NASCAR Jackman, we do that every week after the race, recap it. I put the link in the bio below. Check it out. It's on YouTube. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. But let's get into all the news that we had happen on Wednesday and I guess even on Tuesday night as well. We'll start off with a couple of small things real quick. Christian Horner, he is out as team principal and CEO of Red Bull Racing. That came out on Wednesday morning. Not a huge shock. Writing was on the wall there. Bit surprising they did it right after the British Grand Prix and in the middle of the season in a sense. Laurent Mekies moves over from Racing Bulls as the team principal there. He now takes over at Red Bull Racing, leaving Ferrari. Probably the best thing ever for him to do. Where Christian ends up at now, who knows? Kind of up in the air. Ferrari had flirted with potentially trying to steal him away from Red Bull. He had denied them multiple times. Now we'll see if maybe he wants to take over there. Although I still think Fred Vasseur is doing a pretty solid job over at Ferrari considering, well, they're Ferrari. So we'll see what happens on that side of things. Also, the NASCAR penalty report from Chicago came out and, well, there was nothing on it. No penalties for Alex Bowman or Bubba Wallace in their incident and their beating and banging. No penalties for Ross Chastain and Joey Logano, even though Joey Logano advocated for Ross to get a penalty because he said Ross told him that he intentionally wrecked him. The problem is it's kind of hearsay, right? Like doesn't hold up in a court. Ross never said that to media, never said to TV, print, radio, anybody like that, never said it over the radio. So it's just Joey, relaying what Ross told him, and you can't penalize off of that. So no penalties to come out of Chicago, but we had a big time news story happen on Wednesday, not the clash, we'll get to that in a minute, but the Fourth Circuit of Appeals panel has denied the request for a rehearing in the overturn of the injunction that was granted to the teams earlier this year. So last month, the teams lost their injunction. The Fourth Circuit of Appeals, a 3-judge panel, overturned that injunction, meaning that the teams no longer were guaranteed their charters. NASCAR could pull those charters back. The teams, of course, did have a set period of time where they could request a rehearing from the Fourth Circuit of Appeals court, and they did that. And the court denied it. The appeals court said, nope, we're not going to rehear this. They wanted the full panel, not just the 3 judges, but the entire panel to rehear this case. Not going to happen. So now, in 7 days, NASCAR has the ability to pull those charters back from 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsport. Are they going to do that? That's where that remains up in the air. That's where one of the biggest questions lies. I think there's 2 big questions to come out of this. One, does NASCAR pull those charters, or does NASCAR let them keep their charters as like a sign of good faith? You guys have had them for half the year. You can continue to have them for half the year. I don't think that's going to happen. This is me. This is Matt from Break Hard talking right here. I do believe that they will end up pulling those charters back. There appears to be no love lost between these two sides in this entire situation, and I don't think NASCAR wants to play nice in this situation. So I do believe that they will pull those charters back. To me, one of the biggest questions, or perhaps the biggest question that remains, is whether or not NASCAR is going to ask those teams to pay back the money that they made racing as charter teams for the first half of this year, because, well, they don't have a signed charter agreement, but they were racing underneath the charter, racing with a charter for the first half of the season. So does NASCAR ask for that money back and then basically just allow them to keep the money they would have earned as an open team, but return all the money that they made as a charter team? I think that may happen. Again, I am just talking as Matt from Break Hard here, but that is certainly something that has been discussed amongst some people in the garage area. So I think that there is a chance that request is made, and NASCAR may go to the courts as well and ask for that to be paid back. Ultimately, all of that money should have just been put into a trust, into an escrow account, essentially. And then once this was all decided after that trial that's going to start on December 1st, then, whether or not the teams won, they get all the money out of that. If NASCAR wins, they get all the money out of that. But all the money just sits there kind of in purgatory. I will say from the other team's perspective, the teams that did sign the charter agreement, they would like NASCAR to pull those charters back from those teams, because that will increase the payouts for them, because, well, that's 6 less chartered cars that will be on the racetrack. Well, guaranteed starting spots on the racetrack, guarantee that higher money payout as well. The teams, if they do in fact lose their charters, can continue to race as open cars for the remainder of the year, and in all likelihood will qualify for every single race. The likelihood of us getting 41 cars at the majority of the races remaining isn't very high. In fact, I would be shocked if we go over 40 cars for any of the remaining races. Now, of course, some teams could get crafty here and do sort of what we saw back in the 2000s and try to stack fields, right? If you have a 3-car team, you could put a 4th car in as an open car. If you have a 2-car team, you can enter 2 extra cars if you wanted to. And that could maybe force those teams to have to qualify on speed then. Aspire could enter a car. RFK could enter a car. Trackhouse could enter a 4th car. Stuff like that. And that could eat up potentially some of those open spots for those 6 teams. I don't expect that to happen. That'd be diabolical in a sense. But this is a big time story. The 2 sides seemingly are still not close to an agreement. I don't think NASCAR wants to settle this. NASCAR appears to be very happy going to that trial date on December 1st. Obviously, the teams were disappointed. Their lawyer, Jeffrey Kessler, disappointed as well, but said that this does not affect their case for December 1st. He still believes that they have an antitrust case, a strong one going forward, which, of course, he's going to say that. But ultimately, when it comes down to this, the teams were basically allowed to have their cake and eat it too in this situation. They never signed the charter agreement, but they got to reap all the benefits of being a charter team. And that was NASCAR's whole point in this, where they're like, hey, you guys didn't sign this, but you want the benefits of it. So why should that be allowed? And the court sided with NASCAR in this. And I think that's a logical approach, right? Like you can't reap the benefits of something that you did not want to sign. Oh, well, we don't want to sign it, but we still want everything that comes along with it. Well, hang on a second here. That's not exactly fair whatsoever. I think we would all like to have a deal like that. Hey, listen, I would love to get paid what I get paid at my professional job, but I don't want to do any of the work. Okay, that seems reasonable. No, it doesn't seem reasonable, right? Like you didn't sign up to be a part of this, so why do you get to reap the full benefits of it? You can have your open money, which is substantially less than what the charter payout is here, but ultimately I think it was a fair ask by NASCAR. Now the big question is whether or not they do in fact pull those charters at Dover next week. Obviously, they have 7 days, so they can't do it for this weekend at Sonoma. It would come the following week at Dover. We'll have to wait and see what they decide to do with that, but this story still ongoing and still appears to be full steam ahead after spending tens of millions of dollars on legal fees for a December 1st trial date. We also had some other news on Wednesday morning in the NASCAR world. The Clash will return to Bowman Gray Stadium in 2026. That race will be on February 1st. I believe it'll probably be on Big Fox as well. The lead into the Super Bowl the next week, and then the Daytona 500 the week after that. Of course, Chase Elliott won the first Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium earlier this year, and all of his fans freaked out about it. Chase Elliott's back. Hey, he did win in Atlanta, so hey, we can officially say Chase Elliott is back now. But I think that the Clash at Bowman Gray Stadium at the Madhouse certainly served its purpose. I think everybody enjoyed it. The stands were packed. The locals there in Winston-Salem and everybody else that traveled in seemed to really enjoy that experience. And if you've ever been to Bowman Gray Stadium, it's the Wrigley Field of NASCAR. I think that's probably the best way to say it. It's a friendly, not so friendly confines some weeks, but it's an intimate setting. You feel you're right on top of the track. Everybody's close to you. It doesn't feel like this colossal stadium because it's not. It only seats like 17,000 people, but it is very loud. It is very energetic, and everybody is solely focused on what's happening on the racetrack. I mean, heck, we had that one lady just giving Ricky Stenhouse Jr. double birds for the run that he had with Burt Myers. Like, it's Bowman Gray Stadium to its core. And I'm happy that the Clash is going back there because NASCAR had explored the idea of potentially going international with the Clash, and Brazil continues to pop up. And I think they need to get the regular season points paying date that they have in Mexico, all the travel, logistics, and everything figured out for that before we decide to go somewhere even further. That's going to include air freight and everything else to get all of the cars down there. So for now, I think staying at Bowman Gray Stadium makes the most sense. A couple weeks ago, we did talk about the future of NASCAR at Bowman Gray Stadium and the deal that they had worked out with the city of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that would see the two of them come together to buy a new video board, $1 million video board for the stadium, for Bowman Gray Stadium, where the city's going to cover like 50%, NASCAR is going to cover 40%, and Winston-Salem State University is going to cover the other 10%. Part of that deal, though, that the city has striked with NASCAR or will strike with NASCAR is that there will be a NASCAR National Touring Series race at Bowman Gray Stadium for the next 5 years. Whether that's the Clash, an Xfinity Series race, or a Truck Series race, it appears to not matter, but there has to be one of those races at the stadium each year. So You would think that the Clash would certainly check that box for 26. Now for 2027, maybe we see somebody else there. I would advocate for the Truck Series to go there because the Truck Series deserves to be on short tracks. The Truck Series should go back to its roots in a sense, have some standalone races. I know Fox doesn't want to hear that, but let's go ahead and do some standalone races and go back to short tracks, go back to grassroots racing, reconnect with that, because that's a series that you can take to some of these smaller facilities and have really good racing with. Now, the Clash going back there next year, I'm excited for it. I think it's going to sell out once again. I think it's going to be a really good race. I think what we saw this year was just sort of a precursor to what we could see next year. I thought the whole event was great with the modifieds as well, because the modifieds are what made the Madhouse. That's the whole point and the whole reason why Bowman Gray Stadium is as famous as it is. Although some of those street stocks and late model guys have certainly been getting in the news lately, running across the football field, jumping on top of cars, trying to rip hoods off. It's Bowman Gray Stadium. That's just what happens there. But regardless, the Clash will go back to Bowman Gray Stadium in 2026. Dale Jr. has heard your complaints about TNT, and he said he and the rest of the TNT staff and crew are very aware of the shortcomings from this past weekend's race in Chicago, and they're working on getting better. So obviously, I was at the racetrack on Saturday and Sunday. I missed the CW broadcast and the TNT broadcast. I went back and watched the Cup Series race on Monday night, and I guess into Tuesday morning as well. And all the complaints that I read about on social media that I saw from Eric Estep and others were valid. They definitely were valid. I think that TNT has come in and they're trying to do things a little bit different, but it felt a lot like Fox, and that's what people don't want to see. We just came off the gold standard of NASCAR coverage that we haven't seen in years, thanks to Prime and their 5 races. And then we go to TNT and it's like, it's a step down. And there's just small things that they can fix there. And one of the things I noticed when I went back and watched the race was a lot of the audio quality was not very good. The ambient noise, really bad. So that's an easy thing to clean up for the most part. The other part, commercials are a necessary evil. I get people don't like them. I completely understand. I think there was like 48 minutes of commercials during the broadcast, which is excessive, but they did a really good job of splitting them basically half and half, with traditional full screen commercials and then picture-in-picture, side-by-side commercials at the break there. The unfortunate part is you don't know when anything's going to happen on the racetrack. So when the director goes to commercial, sometimes things happen. And it felt like every time they went to commercial on Sunday, something on track would happen, which is unfortunate. But again, something that they can't necessarily control. Obviously, you can break out a commercial for that, but from an advertising standpoint, there's somebody sitting back in the trailer or back in Atlanta that's like, oh my gosh, now we have to do a make good for this commercial because they only got half the commercial in, and then that's going to stack up the rest of the commercial they had planned out, or they're going to have to figure that out for the next week. And it's something that they just really don't want to do because it creates a bigger headache than it's worth, honestly. Then you had other things where like they just seemingly missed stuff on track. The director felt very Fox-ish for a minute there, where they missed the Bubba Wallace, Alex Bowman spin, like they cut back and Bubba's backwards going down the straightaway. And how do you miss that? They also missed the Ryan Blaney incident, and there's just a couple of other things where it's like, they probably should have been able to catch that as well. I don't think they even showed Catherine Leggs spinning around in turn 1, driving backwards, and then doing a 3-point turn and continuing on. So it's just a lot of small things that they missed on the racetrack. And to be fair, there was a lot of things happening on Sunday. There was everything for what you saw on TV, there was probably a dozen other things that happened on the racetrack that they never showed on TV. Whether that's people running into the wall, people getting put in the tires, or just other beating and banging type of things that just didn't make their way to television. It was a pretty eventful race from watching there in person. But for Dale Jr. to come out and be like, hey, yeah, we saw all the complaints. We're going to work to get better. I like the self-awareness there. I like them wanting to improve. I know some people are going to be mad about it because people just get mad about everything. But ultimately, you like to see the broadcast at least admit that they messed up, that there's things they could get better at. Fox seemingly does not want to do that, which is fine. If they think that that's the product they want to put out on TV, then so be it. That's just what they want to do, and they're fine with the ridicule that they get online. But at the same time, Prime showed us how good coverage can be. I would like to see others try to emulate that, and hopefully TNT cleans it up this weekend in Sonoma, Dover, and then for their last race in Indianapolis as well. But Regardless, I'm happy to have them back as a TV partner. They did a really good job activation-wise in Chicago, and hopefully, like I said, they clean things up just a little bit for Sonoma, and we don't have to talk about this next week as well. So let me know in the comments what you thought about NASCAR, being able to pull the charters back from the 2311 and Front Row Motorsports, effective around Dover if they want to. But the Clash going back to Bowman Gray Stadium, as well as Dale Jr. saying that there's things that TNT can clean up and get better with. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok @BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook @BreakHardBlog.